What is up, people? We are sweeping the league Wednesday night again. We are going to be covering the AFC North and NFC North divisions tonight. I actually created a small intro video for us with no music because apparently the last one I created for the Fantasy Countdown, we got tagged on for royalty-free music. Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Trey Collis, Will Haverland from the Fantasy Countdown might be joining us tonight. Austin Hartsfield is on hiatus right now, but we'll be glad to get him back here pretty soon. Gentlemen, it's Wednesday night. I know I can hear Trey. Can I hear Gio?
Testing 1, 2.
He's back.
Testing Sony Michelle. Testing Sony Michelle.
Testing Sony Michelle. How about those Cowboys, Gio? Is that what your shirt says?
No, it's a Georgia Bulldog shirt, by the way. How about them dogs? Yes, the Bulldogs, SEC football, the best conference in the land.
Well, yeah. Now that they've got Texas and OU,
no. They're desperate to get in there. So we said, you know what? We'll throw them a bone.
Desperate.
So
I mean, not as desperate as Jerry Jones last night on Hard Knocks, but
dude, that was bull. Oh my god.
Jesus.
Dude, Jerry's in coaches meetings. I mean, what the hell's going on here? He's writing notes.
Jerry has his hands in everything, dude.
Yeah,
everybody knows that.
CEO, GM, owner, president, everything.
Jerry has his hands in everything to include the no, we're not going to get into that. That's old Rated R podcast stuff. We're not the Rated R podcast anymore. So like I said, it's Wednesday night. We're sweeping the league. Brought to you by Project Spurs and DraftKings. Hey, fantasy football right around the corner. Go get that DraftKings account. I already got mine set up. I'm ready to go this year. Daily fantasy. We're going to give you all the daily fantasy picks for your entire fantasy football season. Listen to us every Sunday on the Fantasy Countdown from 10 to 11. Again, this is brought to you by Project Spurs and DraftKings. And lo and behold, look who's joining us this time. We've got almost the entire crew. Will Haverland joining us now as we're about to get started here on Sweep the League. We're going to cover the AFC North and the NFC North. It's the frozen tundra just about in all these places, man. There ain't no hot, sunny weather in any of these places. We're going to get right into it here. First things first, AFC North preview. Let's go, man. Baltimore Ravens. So finished last season at 11-5. Obviously, the key players are Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Mark Andrews. On the defensive end, Calais Campbell, Marcus Peters, Patrick Queen. The additions you've got. I mean, they went out and drafted Rashad Bateman. They added Sammy Watkins, who is obviously the week one wonder, Sammy Watkins. Baltimore Ravens, guys. I mean, when you're talking about the AFC North, probably the best team in the AFC North, question mark. I mean, Pittsburgh, obviously, they've got, an aging Ben Roethlisberger. They've got a nice receiving tandem there. The addition of Najee Harris, we'll get into Pittsburgh in a while, but Cleveland on paper seems to have the loaded roster like they normally have the past few years. But I think Baltimore is the team to beat in the AFC North. Let's go around the horn here as we cover the Baltimore Ravens here for everybody here on Sweep the League. Let's start with Gio, Coach Gio. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson's being that guy to watch. I have said personally that he's the guy that a lot of defensive coordinators are going to scheme for this year. You had an entire season of watching Lamar. I think he takes a step back. He's not going to essentially be that top 5 QB that we're going to see fantasy-wise. But again, do you think that Lamar can get it done this season and take the Ravens even further?
Probably so. I mean, listen, they love running the football, passes down the field, and obviously with Bateman kind of being necked up kind of hurts because Sammy Watkins, we know he has one good game and that's it. But as long as they run the football, control the clock, this is going to be a football team that is just going to get to the postseason. I mean, we saw the past few years how much rushing they've done. If Lamar could just continue to take next step in kind of his quarterback process of kind of building, I think they'll be sitting right where they need to be at the end of the season. And remember, Lamar got hurt in that Buffalo game. I mean, who knows? Could they have beaten the Bills with him healthy? I mean, he left that game, halftime? So I think Lamar Jackson's poised for another big season. The problem with stopping this offense is they do so much window dressing. They just move guys all around the field. The tight end position, Mark Andrews, is fantastic. This is a team that should kind of progress in the passing game, but running the football, I mean, listen, they're one of the best teams in the league at rushing. J.K. Dobbins, I mean, expecting a pretty good to big year from him. They got other backs in that offense. As long as they control the football, they're going to be tough to beat. I don't care how much you game plan against the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be tough because what he can do with his legs, the rushing, as well as just the passing, which is the cherry on top with this team.
Exactly. We got Derek Irvin here, another future member of Sweep the League here. Derek Irvin chiming in, says overrated Lamar gets exposed as a passer come playoff time. Which really does. That's where I feel that the negative side of Lamar is, and that's why I think if you're going to limit him to being a running QB, that's going to hurt Baltimore. I think that hurts Baltimore in the long run here. Let's go to Trey Collis. Trey, Baltimore Ravens, man, we hear Joe talking about Lamar. He still thinks he's going to have a phenomenal year. Who else besides Lamar do we need to see step up for these Ravens to have a very successful season?
The receiving core as a group needs to step up. They need to have us. Can Marquise Brown come out and be the number one stud this year for the wide receiver position? That's what the Baltimore Ravens are actually missing. They don't have that number one guy to go. I mean, Marquise Brown can beat you over the top, but they just don't have that number one guy consistently that you can go to when you need a key third down or anything like that. So will this year be any different? I don't see it happening. I just think that the Baltimore Ravens are pretty much the same Baltimore Ravens. Now, if they're leading at halftime, then you're golden. They're going to win the game but if they're trailing, and we see in each playoff losses that they've had, they're going to be basically a shell of themselves, and they don't know how to come back from because they're not a throwing team. So, but if Lamar Jackson get his accuracy down, get it going, get a couple wide receivers, number one, number two, because I think Marquise Brown's a good receiver, but I just don't think he's number one. But I mean, I'll watch out for Patrick Queen. He's a stud. He's a track star, man. This guy's fast. This guy can get you anything you want. But Gio's, I mean, I don't honestly have them winning the NFC North. I'm going to save that for a little bit later. But, man, I just don't think – I think what you see is what you get. I think they're a good regular season team, maybe even a great regular season team. But when it comes playoff time and there's 17 games on you, as Lamar Jackson sees – in the past two playoff years, there's no way they scheme a lot better for you, and the defense is a lot better than what you played in the regular season. And not only that, your defense, your division this year is actually better because the Cincinnati Bengals are no slouch. If Joe Burrow and all them are healthy, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think that receiving core as a whole needs to get a whole lot better for Lamar Jackson, and then Lamar Jackson also needs to be more accurate on the slant routes and then underneath throws and the deep ball as well. But when he's accurate, he's probably one of the best QBs in the league with his legs. And if he can just get his accuracy down, he's the best quarterback in the league. Dual quarterback in the league. But I just think it's a wide receiver as a core because we know what you're going to get from J.K. Dobbins. You know what you're going to get from these all running backs. You know what you're going to get on the defensive side of the ball, also special teams. But the receiving core is the question mark to me in this season.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go to Will Haviland. Will, if you can give us the DraftKings fantasy value for the Baltimore Ravens here. I mean, Lamar obviously is going to be drafted relatively high when it comes to QBs. When you get a dual threat quarterback here with the running and even the passing. But one guy in particular that I'm kind of on the fence with is one J.K. Dobbins. I mean, because of Lamar's running ability, can J.K. have that fantasy value that owners are looking for this season?
I think he can. It just comes down to what they're going to do. There's Gus Edwards. How many touches is he going to get? He always comes out strong at least 1-2 games a year. I feel like it's the opportunity. Look at Mark Ingram. He always did well. I think the opportunity here, I think they got rid of Ingram for Dobbins for the long run and to get younger and healthy.
Yeah, that's true. I do like that value. Joe, you got any value for the fantasy?
I mean, listen, J.K. did have 800 yards and 9 touchdowns last season for kind of a relatively quiet season from a guy who was just 200 yards away from 1,000 yards. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, obviously Mark Andrews. I mean, he's a big touchdown guy, not so much yardage. Kind of depends on kind of game plan. And also the receivers, I really am high on Bateman, Hollywood Brown. These guys are all going to be kind of week to week, kind of game planning on who's going to get free. And Sammy Watkins, listen, I don't know what you're going to get from him. So it's a week to week thing. I'm going with J.K. and Lamar, then also Mark Andrews. And defensively, I think they'll be okay. Though they did have some guys leave this offseason, but I think they'll be a pretty good defense, kind of middle of the road.
Yeah, I think the value's there for fantasy, especially with Lamar Jackson. Dobbins would be a good value in fantasy. I don't know how high you would actually take him. Mark Andrews is another guy. Probably he's got to finish within top maybe 6.
Yeah, I mean the guy just gets touchdowns. Like he may not have always the yardage, but the red zone, he's a big red zone threat.
Yeah, speaking of red zone threat, this next team, we'll get into the fantasy value here in a minute, but let's move on to the very next team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Trey was bringing up Cincinnati here, basically saying they're going to be a lot better, which I kind of agree. They're going to be better. It's just that damn offensive line is what gets me worried about Cincinnati. Last year, we saw the struggles of Joe Mixon. So the best Joe in the backfield technically was Joe Burrow, not Joe Mixon, even though it should have been the opposite. The opposite should have been Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, to me, is the guy for Cincinnati that is a huge make or break for this team. He's got to have a better season, but then again, that offensive line has to be set for the Cincinnati Bengals. They've got the receiving core, probably one of the best trios in the league when it comes to Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and also Jamar Chase. You definitely know Burrow knows he can sling it around the entire field. Could we see a better record for Cincinnati this season, better than 4-11, if everybody stays healthy and they get the good offensive line play that they do need to get out of these players? Let's start with Trey on this. Trey, you were talking high about the Cincinnati Bengals. What can we expect from the Bengals this season?
Oh, man. Cincinnati Bengals, if Joe Burrow stays healthy, and you're right, that offensive line needs help, but they went on the offseason and improved their offensive line from probably a C- grade to or D-, D+, whatever the case may be, probably to a B. It's going to help Joe Burrow out a lot, but you're right. Joe Mixon's going to have to help Joe Burrow out. I don't count last year as much because it was a COVID year. It was a weird year. No one had the right stats. It was just a weird, stinking year. But I'm looking for Joe Mixon to have a great year this year running the ball with that offensive line. I think they're going to open up holes for him, and he's going to have a big fantasy impact, maybe as your number 2 running back in your fantasy lineup. But my eyes are on Jamar Chase this year. Remember, they're not clicking right now, him and Joe Burrow, even though they clicked for the national championship. Jamar Chase did not play in college last year. He set the year out because of COVID. And before that, I think he led the league in the SEC in drop passes, and he's dropped a lot of passes in preseason and two-a-day and training camp and everything like that. But if Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow could get on the same page, and then you add Tyler Boyd, and then all these other great, and then Higgins as well, man, this offense could be light up with anyone in the bed. They can average maybe 31 points a game if they're all clicking on this. Because Joe Burrow, before he got injured, was probably on pace to beat Justin Herbert out for Rookie of the Year last year. He was having that great of a season with that crappy offensive line. So saying all that, I just believe that if Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and the receivers start clicking and that offensive line keeps them healthy, Joe Burrow, that is, I look for the Cincinnati Bengals go from 4-11 to probably I can give them 7 wins this year.
Wow, 7 wins. Okay. Well, what Trey was saying was obviously true. I mean, you get the good offensive line play for Cincinnati. This Bengals team can actually go somewhere. They've got the weapons. And not only that, they did have some nice pieces on the defensive side. Trey's got them maybe at 7 wins, considering, if everything gels together for the Bengals. How do you see the Bengals playing out this season?
I mean, I can see 7 wins, but I just feel like they're the Bengals. I feel like they've always had a great receiving core in the past, and they done. I don't know. I think the sky's the limits if Burrows is he is. And if they can stay healthy, I think health is a big thing for this core. Tyler Boyd's always banged up. Mixon every now and then. I mean, sky's the limit if they can stay healthy. 7 wins is a stretch, but I think they can get there. But it also depends how well they play in their division.
Well, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Remember, the
Yes.
Bengals are playing a last place schedule. So they're better than Jacksonville, better than probably the AFC West guy. South is, yeah, I mean, they're playing a last place schedule. And plus, Joe Burrow, this ain't the same Bengals with Andy Dalton, Marvin Lewis, and everything like that. So that's why I'm thinking that this head coach is a very good head coach. And Joe Burrow was having a phenomenal season until he tore his ACL last year because of that offensive line. So that's why I'm asking you. That's where I think you're going to get 7. They already won 4 games last year. I think they can get 3 more with that last place schedule.
I feel a bet's coming on. So if they don't get to 7 wins, do we dare have Trey Collis and Daisy Dukes at the end of the season?
Whoa, no one wants to see that, buddy. Nobody wants to see that.
So you better pray they get 7 wins, man.
He's a Cowboys fan. Those are common.
Oh, God. Hey, Gio, so going over to the Bengals, man, let's talk about the Bengals here as far as fantasy value goes. Obviously the receiving core is going to have some value. Joe Burrow is going to have some value. The question mark is that Mixon guy. I mean, I drafted Joe in the second round a few times last year, and there was even one league where I was drafting, I think, 12th that I took Mixon in the first round. So the expectations on Joe this season, can they still be high because he was so disappointing last season?
Yeah, very disappointing to say the least. I mean, the offensive line, they were, I think, ranked 30th by Pro Football Focus. So obviously, it just struggled to open up holes. That did make some additions. Joe Mixon is kind of an interesting player because the Bengals have the passing game. They're going to throw it around. That defense, I think they'll improve, but they're going to be in potentially some shootouts. I think maybe giving Joe Mixon another season just with this group of talented players. I mean, they added Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, T. Higgins came up big. I mean, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd were playing very well before Joe Burrow went down. You have tight end, kind of like Drew Sample, I believe is his name. So they got pieces. I think Joe can have a decent season, but I'm thinking in the 3rd, 4th round, for my liking, potentially for Joe Mixon. I wouldn't draft him with the 1st and 2nd round pick, and maybe late 3rd going into the 4th round. I just think that they might just – I mean, listen, Joe Burrow, I think really he had the all-time rookie pass attempts in that Browns game. I think he threw the ball like 50 times. So they're going to throw it around a lot. I'm hoping Mixon can get involved, but the offensive line, we just don't 100% just know yet how well they're going to gel.
Yeah, and, the thing that I see for Cincinnati with Mixon, actually, I mean, you're right. I still got him around the 3rd or 4th round going in this season. Real quick mention, one guy whose value went up today actually was one James Robinson out of Jacksonville with the news that Travis Etienne is going to probably be out for the season. So I know Robinson was ranked pretty low.
Yeah, he's been kind of dropping, and I was a little worried, but I think now you have to kind of settle up James Robinson and just go with him, though that offense did not look very good against the Saints. I'm not sure what to expect from that offense opening day.
Well, Trevor Lawrence being named starting QB, I mean, it's going to struggle. Trevor's going to struggle. I don't see him,
Well, I mean, their best corner that they drafted was getting eat up by Callaway. No, I mean, Callaway's a pretty big receiver, but they got the guy from Seattle to be that kind of anchor at cornerback, and they just looked very lost.
Yeah. Speaking of struggling, we're going to start off with Mr. Will Haverland, only because he lives in the backyard of one Cleveland Brown territory. So
the dog pound.
Yeah, the dog pound themselves. Last year, not a bad season. I mean, you're looking at a team that's 11-5, bringing back some outstanding players, obviously, with Baker, Nick Chubb, Odell and Jarvis, Austin Hooper, former Atlanta Falcon. I wouldn't say great, but former good Atlanta Falcon, Austin Hooper. Obviously, you got Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. They added a nice little rookie core of Greg Newsome and Koramoah. I said that right, actually. But they did add some really nice pieces, especially on the defensive end in the offseason. This dog pound, this Cleveland Browns team can actually make some good noise. I really like what they did in the offseason. I think this could be the year that they make a lot of noise. Do I have them better than Baltimore? Like I said, on paper, yes, I have them better than Baltimore. I just have to see it clicking on the field, which is the problem we have when it comes to Cleveland. Will, you are in the backyard of Cleveland. You're in the backyard of Dog Pound territory. What is the vibe in Cleveland right now when it comes to the Browns?
I mean, they're like the Cowboys. High vibes, high expectations. Not talking Super Bowl, but making playoff runs, winning the division, things like that. I think it's more realistic this year. I think they can win the division, honestly, but it's hard with Baltimore being a great regular season team. I think the team's built for the playoffs with the running game, adding all this defensive. I mean, adding Jadeveon Clowney, I think that's going to help Myles Garrett and that defensive line a little bit more. They won't have to double Myles Garrett. I think the defense is going to shine this year if they stay healthy. That secondary stays healthy. Adding Greg Newsome, everybody loved that pick. Everybody's talking about this kid. He has a swag. He has some kind of attitude. I mean, that's all they were talking about after the draft was how great Greg Newsome was going to be for this secondary and how he's just going to change the defensive mindset.
Yeah, I get that completely, man. I love – and it's funny because, I mean, you're talking Jadeveon Clowney. You're thinking Clowney hadn't done crap since, he's been in the league. But I think he makes a huge difference for this Dogs team. I mean, the Dog Pound's going to be barking up a storm. I love him next to Myles Garrett. I mean, it could probably free up Clowney to have a really good season. Gio, as far as the Dog Pound goes, Cleveland Browns, are we expecting much from Cleveland this year? I mean, like I said, on paper, this team is phenomenal. It's great. Those offseason additions should be beneficial to this team. Can we expect them to give Baltimore a run for their money this year?
Of course. I mean, they're also like the Ravens. They run the football. They have the number one offensive line in Pro Football Focus, so they can get down and dirty with the Ravens as well. I think Baker Mayfield, obviously, taking another step in that process. I talk about that with certain quarterbacks, just continuing to improve, getting better. They got the weapons. And then on defense, you had also Josh Johnson from the Rams. I think he had over 100 tackles for us last season. You bring him in there. This is a team from top to bottom that I think they have one of the better rosters in the league as we speak. It's all going to depend about the quarterback. They're going to go as far as Baker Mayfield takes them. That's, in my opinion, honestly, that's how far they're going to go. And they were a few plays away from beating the Chiefs and getting to the NFC Championship game, or actually the AFC Championship game. So they got the weapons, got the pieces, take a next step. This is going to be a fun team to watch. But listen, they're a physical football team. Like, they have some great receivers. They got Austin Hooper at tight end, but they want to run the football with Chubb. And then obviously Kareem Hunt catching passes out of the backfield. They have one of the best teams in the league. I mean, I could definitely see them win the division. It's them and the Ravens for me who could potentially come out of this division.
Yeah, I think it's a two-team race. I mean, it really is a two-team race for me. I mean, I like Baltimore. Like I said, I think I like Baltimore more because they've proven it on the field. Whereas Cleveland, on paper, it's probably the best team in this division, one of the best teams probably in the league. I mean, on paper, but they've got to prove it on the field. That's something that they haven't been able to do. Trey, let's get some fantasy value for Cleveland here. Obviously, Nick Chubb's going to be a first-rounder. I mean, everyone has a Chubb for Nick Chubb because he's definitely the running back.
What school did he go to, Rudy?
Oh, it's some bump-kiss school down south or somewhere. I don't know. Apparently, I was in Georgia, I think, which,
University of Georgia.
Anybody can get into Georgia.
Sony Michel, Herschel Walker, A.J. Green, Todd Gurley, just to name a few.
It's running back you. I mean, can we honestly say it's running back you? I mean, Georgia Bulldogs, obviously. But, fantasy value, Trey, we're talking Cleveland Browns here. Nick Chubb is going to be the guy that you probably want to get first when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Baker's going to drop some. Baker's not that quarterback that was flying off the shelves, the fantasy shelves, like he was in the past few seasons. Odell Beckham's an older name. Jarvis Landry's an older name. I want to throw this out there. The defense might be something you want to look at when you're drafting, especially late in drafts if you don't have a defense on your team. Cleveland's one that you can stream week to week, but it's also one you can draft for the long run of the season. What do you got, Trey?
And you hit the nail on the coffin right there. I was going to say defense. That defense is going to give you some points, unexpected points when you need, maybe if you're down 10 points and you have them on a Sunday night and you're like, oh, and they can give you that 12-point game with the turnovers. Like they're going to create the sacks that defensive line that these guys already alluded to. But, I mean, another guy to look out for is it's going to be Jarvis Landry. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. I think he's going to have over 1,500. I personally think he's going to have 1,500 yards receiving this year. I think he's going to have maybe 12, 13 touchdowns as well. I think Baker Mayfield is going to take that next step. I would draft not early rounds, but Baker probably late. If you're looking for a second QB, a backup QB, or however league is set up, I think that you need to get him maybe 8th round, 9th round, somewhere around there. Just as a backup QB. It just depends on how much teams you're in your league. If you're in a draft like I was, 16-player league, you're not going to have that. It's ridiculous.
Dude, I hate those leagues.
Oh, it was so bad.
16, 17.
Yeah, it was so bad. I look at Odell Beckham Jr., guys. If he can stay healthy this year, he's going to open up Landry, and he's also going to create some touchdowns of his own. Look for Baker Mayfield to have a backup, a better year than he did last year. Remember, I can't remember. Did he ever sign his extension this year, or is he going to wait out till next year? I can't remember if he signed or not.
I don't think he's signed. I think he's gonna. They're
gonna wait.
Nobody signed but Chubb.
Okay, so there you go. So I think he's going to prove his worth, and I think that he's going to have a great season. And I'm totally again. I think they're going to win the division. This is my team to win the division this year. I think they take the next step. I think Baltimore takes a step back. I think the defense, the running game that you alluded to, it doesn't always have to be on Baker Mayfield's shoulders. You have Nick Chubb, then you have Kareem Hunt, who is over a 1,500-yard back with Kansas City, and then now you have him with New England as a backup running back. So you can use him in different formations as well in the slot and swing passes and stuff like that. Plus Nick Chubb from Georgia Bulldog, he can actually do that too. So it's not all on Baker Mayfield's shoulders. So if you're looking for a quarterback, I would probably draft him probably 8th round. It'd probably be 8th or 9th round, probably be a good pick. But Jarvis Landry, maybe 5th round would be a good pick for him. And then Odell Beckham Jr., 7th would be a good pick for him. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's hungry. You haven't heard much from him this offseason. So I think that he's going to be – I think he's all focused. I think they're ready to rock and roll. I think they're going to win the division.
You know, I wanted to say something real quick off topic here. One of my fantasy leagues started up this week, and we're going to be drafting, I believe, this weekend sometime. It's a keeper league, so basically you keep the player and you lose a draft pick for that round. So I was able to keep 3 players. The 3 players I kept were Ezekiel Elliott, who I got in the first round, Devontae Adams, who I got in the 3rd round, and Jonathan Taylor, who I got in the 6th round. So I'm thinking all 3 guys are first-round picks primarily. So just want to throw that out there that I'm pretty happy right now that I was able to.
Are you trying to rub this in, Rudy?
I just want to say, you know, like I said, you know, there's fantasy gods and there's fantasy immortals. You can defeat a god, but you can't defeat an immortal here. So just wanted to throw that out there for everybody as we move on, because there's one immortal team that everybody loves to love on, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin, this is one of the coaches that is on the proverbial hot seat for me.
What? He went 12-4, Rudy.
He went 12-4.
Wow.
But
he's not for a losing season ever.
if you guys would let me explain as to why I have a hot seat take.
He drinks the Saints tight end.
I think the Steelers are going to be one of the worst teams in the division.
Wow.
I think so. I'm just going to say it right now. I think it's
not
between
hard.
them and Cincinnati as the worst team in the division. I really do. I'm not going to say they're going
They
to
can
have
win
a
10
losing
games and
record.
be second to last.
I get that. But again, like I said, you're supposed to have a hot take. This is my hot take. I don't think the Steelers are going to be a playoff team this year at all. I take Baltimore and I take Cleveland over these guys. I think they're the 3rd best team in the division. Possibly, I mean, okay, can Ben Roethlisberger stay healthy? That's the key. Can he stay healthy? Who in the hell is going to take over the quarterback reins? We saw what happened when Ben went down. You've got Mason Rudolph, who is another Myles Garrett helmet away from just completely being off the face of the earth. You have Dwayne Haskins, who doesn't excite anybody. He hasn't excited anybody since Ohio State. And you have Joshua Dobbs. I mean, Big Ben is not a healthy guy. He's an older quarterback. Without Big Ben staying healthy, what in the hell do the Steelers have to offer? That is my reason for when I say Tomlin's on the hot seat. He could have a bad season this year. Pittsburgh could potentially be the worst team in this division if Ben goes down. So that's the reason why I say it. I have zero confidence in Ben Roethlisberger staying healthy. Zero confidence. So I'm going to let you guys fight it out with me as to why I say Pittsburgh is probably going to be one of the worst teams in this division. Who wants to go first? Throw it at me. I'm here. Throw it at me. Don't raise your hand. This isn't high school, Trey. First week.
Man, Rudy, man. Okay, first off, I'm kind of with you a little bit. Okay, I just think that
There you go.
I think Ben Roethlisberger will he? That's a question mark. Will he stay healthy? He came in shape. He came in camp shape this year. He came in a lot less. He didn't drink a lot of beer this offseason. He didn't. I mean, his face looks a little bit smaller. He looks a little bit better than he did the previous years. But I give you one player that he's going to take the load off, and that's Najee Harris. Have you seen this guy from Alabama? This guy he can catch the ball out of that backfield. He can give you those hard yards. You can give it to him whenever third and short. You don't have to throw those little swing passes to Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, Johnson as well. They're not going to be throwing the ball as heavy this year. I think the new offensive coordinator is going to come in and help them out with that. And I think that Najee Harris is going to take a lot of load off Ben Roethlisberger's shoulders this year, getting those yards. I think Najee Harris is probably second-round pick to me. I mean, I got him in the third round this year, for God's sake. I think he's that good of a running back, and I think that he's going to help Ben Roethlisberger. But I don't think that they're going to win the division. I think I actually have them third, but it's going to be with 10 wins. But I don't think they're going to fight with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think it's going to be them three fighting for it. But I think Ben and the Steelers are actually going to go 10-7, and I think it's going to be Baltimore, and then it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. But I think Najee Harris is the player you need to watch for that's going to help Ben Roethlisberger this year.
You've got them at 10 wins, and I'm looking at their schedule. I don't see 10 wins.
I didn't see 12. I didn't see 11-0 last year either, but it happened.
Yeah, Rudy.
Okay, Gio, you know all about Najee Harris because he torched your damn Bulldogs. What kind of expectations can we see out of Pittsburgh? Does Najee Harris really take the load off of Ben this year?
I think he does. This team was not very good at running the football, though James Conner looked like he had a piano on his back last season. But nonetheless, listen, they got Claypool. You got Dante Johnson. They got a very good receiving core. Ben did show up to camp a lot more slimmer than he usually does. He looks like he's ready to go. I mean, listen, they're going to finish third in this division. I honestly think they're not going to be better than the Browns or the Ravens, but I think Ben Roethlisberger can get you 8, potentially 9 wins on this team just off of his playmaking ability with his arm. Now, his arm, mind you, is not the greatest. He has a little bit of an air pistol for an arm, similar to Phillip Rivers, who throws a shot put a few years ago, actually just last year. So I think 8 to 10 wins. I'm not going to go 10 wins. I think that's a little high for me. I'm more of the 8 wins, maybe 7. I think defensively they're going to be fine. I don't know if Ben can really get this team in some potential shootouts. Can they have enough? But they're going to run the football. They should improve on that aspect. So I don't think they're going to be the worst. I think the Bengals will come in last, as they've normally been doing the past, 5 years?
Maybe. We've got a comment in here from Ed. Don't expect anything. They like it that way. True, because Ed is a Steelers fan. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to get the DM from Ed here in a minute with the middle finger and all that other stuff. But, yeah, it's fine. They do fly under the radar. And my biggest gripe is, like I said, it's the entire thing of Ben Roethlisberger. If you don't have a healthy Ben Roethlisberger, even though Najee Harris is going to take the load off of Ben, like you guys are saying, if Ben doesn't stay healthy, it's like no expectations for Pittsburgh. I mean, Ben is the key factor in this whole thing. Before I get to Will here on, and he also says it too, kind of what Trey said, 11 in a row without a running game. I get that. And for me, it's Ben. It just falls on Ben. I mean, that's the big key for me. Real quick before I get to Will here, before we move on to the NFC North, first game of the season is against Buffalo. That's a loss. I mean, Buffalo's going to win that game. After that, they're playing Vegas and Cincinnati. I can see them winning those 2 games. And then you go Green Bay, Denver, Seattle, Cleveland. Are you really going to tell me that they're going to win 3 out of those 4 games? I mean,
they could. I mean, listen, Ben did throw 33 touchdowns last season to 10 interceptions. I'm just going to throw that out there, Rudy. I know he doesn't have the biggest arm anymore, but that's a pretty good ratio.
All right. We're going to get into some fantasy value. Will, what do you got fantasy value-wise for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Obviously, you don't want to draft Ben Roethlisberger anywhere, probably in any draft. But, I mean, you've got some options here. Najee Harris is obviously one guy that you do have options with. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, even Juju Smith-Schuster, they all have value when it comes to fantasy. Where else are we looking at?
I mean, we've already said everybody. I mean, I think it's Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Najee Harris is where your fantasy value is. I'm not very high on Juju anymore. I think the other 2 have surpassed him, and Juju's just a fly route guy. But, I mean, I feel like he has some problems with his hands every now and then. He'd rather dance and do some TikToks than actually catch the football. But I think those are the 3 that you have to look out for. I think Ben, he has some potential later in the season when they start getting down and it starts getting snowing and all that stuff. He always plays good in the snow. I don't know how, but he does.
True that. Any guys, Trey or Gio, y'all got any more fantasy value for Pittsburgh? I know last year Gio and I talked about the defense having some kind of fantasy value. Did we see the same thing this year by chance?
That's where I was going. I think their defense can win you 1 or 2 games. I think it can give you a win, give you a lot of sacks. I think they can force turnovers. They'll give you some points in fantasy. I think that going back to that point, I just think that they're also going to win you a game or 2 when Ben Roethlisberger and that offense isn't clicking. It happened last year as well whenever they won 11 games in a row. But I just think that the defense, and then I think the wide receivers are your fantasy value pick. I think Claypool's going to have a great year. I think you need to draft him 4th round. And I also think that Johnson maybe 6th or 7th round for him. But I think Najee Harris is your number 1 running back this year. I think he can do so much out of the backfield. He can give you those tough yards. I think you need to draft him 1st or 2nd round this year.
Yeah, I think the defense will be pretty good. I mean, they were 3rd in points allowed. Don't forget Eric Ebron at tight end. I know he's kind of a streaky play at tight end throughout the season, but he's also another name.
Yeah, apparently Ed's saying that we sound like Shaq calling the Spurs boring. It's actually just me, Ed. I'm the only one that's really hating and talking crap about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But one thing I will never talk crap about, obviously, is DraftKings, man. DraftKings, the fantasy football season is upon us. Go get that DraftKings account. Listen to us when it comes to all your daily fantasy needs, or even those tricky tier drafts that they have on DraftKings as well. Listen to us. We're the Fantasy Countdown every single Sunday from 10 to 11. Go get that DraftKings account. And also, hey, we're brought to you by Project Spurs Network. Go give them a follow, man. Project Spurs Network, they do a ton of good stuff out there. We're going to get into the NFC North now. Now, NFC North, guys, I mean, we're talking Bears, Lions, oh my. We are talking about those teams left and right. We're going to start off with one Chicago Bears team. Friend of the show, Carolina Teague of the Sports Time, is a massive fan of the Chicago Bears. I've been trying to tell her since day one that Justin Fields is going to be the week 1 starter. She was kind of hesitant to believe me. I still say Justin Fields is going to be the week 1 starter when it comes to the Chicago Bears. I just can't see you going with Andy Dalton. I mean, Dalton gives you nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. Allen Robinson's that question mark, man. For me, this is a guy who fantasy-wise is being drafted relatively high. I mean, for good reason, he is being drafted relatively high. But can we see the same value if you've got Justin Fields as your starting quarterback? We'll get into that fantasy talk here in a little bit. Gio, start us off with the Chicago Bears, 8-8 last season. What kind of expectations can we expect from the Chicago Bears? Personally, I think we could see a better showing than 8-8. I just don't know how much better.
I think it's going to be around the same thing. I mean, Andy Dalton, listen, he's just not cut. He's not going to play the entire season. You traded away to go get Justin Fields. He's going to play sometime this year. I mean, listen, they don't want him to play week 1 against the Rams with Aaron Donald coming. So I get that, coach, but you're going to have to play Justin Fields eventually. But they have a pretty good team. The defense, I mean, they were a little bit up and down last season, but still pretty consistent. This is a team that I expect them to be really around the same thing. I think 9-8 this year, potentially 8 to 9 wins. I think they'll be able to win some close games with that defense. But overall, I mean, nothing sexy. I mean, they're going to run the football with Montgomery. He's going to play well. I expect him to get a lot more touches this season. I thought he played well last season coming in. But you're looking at 8 to 9 wins, a team that's not very sexy on offense, but I think they can put up points. They're going to be competitive, and I think they're potentially could be the second best team in the division. It's not saying much because the Lions aren't any good, and the Vikings are they're still a team that's coming. So,
yeah, for sure. Hey, Will, as far as the Bears are concerned, like Gio's saying, they're probably going to be right around the same place. 8-9 wins maybe this year. I see them probably right around the same. Like I said, it might be just a little bit better. So I've got them at about 9 wins. I don't know if I can see 10 wins for the Bears team, but getting Justin Fields in here, I mean, is it an obvious where you want to start Justin Fields right away over Andy Dalton?
I do. I think he makes Allen Robinson better. I think he makes David Montgomery better. I think he makes that whole offense that much better just because he's a dual threat quarterback. I mean, a broken play, he's not going to take a sack. He's not going to try to throw a 50-yard bomb or try to do something dumb. He'll tuck it and run 2 yards, tuck it and run for 3, put him in better field position. Mobile quarterbacks is how you win. He's a mobile quarterback. You don't see it as much at OSU, but he can run. You've seen the season so far. He'll give us 3rd and shorts instead of always being in 3rd and long or 3rd and medium. He'll get him to that short where it's an easier, attainable first down. I think he'll play a little bit smarter. The Red Rocket he's just not cutting it. You can tell in interviews he's sour. He knows he's not going to be playing much this year.
Yeah, so let me ask you guys a question before I get to Trey here. And again, I'm just asking this because I want to ask, but I know a thing or two about mobile quarterbacks. I mean, we had one of the best ones in Michael Vick in Atlanta. When's the last time a mobile quarterback won a Super Bowl? Pretty hard to imagine.
Russell Wilson.
Okay, so Russ, yeah.
Patrick Mahomes.
Russell Wilson.
Patrick Mahomes.
Can't really consider Mahomes as a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think he's.
But Russ is a better pocket passer, not exactly a true mobile quarterback like a Vic or.
But he was when they won that Super Bowl though. He didn't become a great pocket passer until after those Super Bowl runs.
So it doesn't really pay to have a mobile QB a lot of times.
I mean, Steve Young was a mobile QB. He has a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Out of the entire Super Bowl history, mobile quarterbacks don't really get it done for you. That's what I'm trying to say. So do you think Justin Fields was the right pick right there?
Yeah. I mean, the city has been.
He's just going to get you short yardage.
Okay. I try to play devil's advocate.
The city is dying. I mean, I live in Chicago. They're dying for a quarterback here. And I think this is the best move that they could make under the circumstances.
Well, I hear Jay Cutler's not doing much these days. I mean,
oh Lord,
probably could have been in there. Trey, give me some value for the Chicago Bears here so we can move on to the next team in the NFC North.
All right, Allen Robinson. We need to get him probably 4th round. I think he's going to be helping out Justin Fields a little bit. Now, Justin Fields is going to be one that you're going to want to take probably in the late rounds, probably as your second quarterback, because I do believe that Andy Dalton is going to start week 1, Rudy. I hate to say that. But then he's going to get killed back then. Well, no, I disagree with the move, but Nagy seems like he's going to start Andy Dalton week 1. But that's okay because that means Andy Dalton's going to get killed, and I love Andy Dalton, but he's going to get killed behind that offensive line. That's why they need to start Justin Fields, because they need a mobile quarterback with this offensive line, because this offensive line is atrocious. We saw that in every preseason. I mean, Justin Fields almost got his head taken off of the second preseason game. So, but keep your eye out on Justin Fields as well in the late. If you need a second quarterback, I would probably look at him in the later part of the rounds, maybe 10th or maybe the last pick of the draft. If you already got your defense and kickers and everything like that, or maybe even waiver wire, depending on your draft's all set up. But I think Montgomery's going to be.
I think so too. One guy in fantasy that I want to kind of give a shout out to, Darnell Mooney. There's one guy in fantasy where you can get him probably on the waiver wire after your draft. If you need a week-to-week guy, I mean, Darnell Mooney is definitely a receiver you want to look at. I mean, he's a speedster. He can get down the field. We've got another comment in here. He says, where is it? I'm going to bring it up here. Pre says, I think Fields starts by week 5. I mean, he's going to start sometime this year. I've been saying week 1. Trey's got him at week 2. Week 5 is a potential as well. I mean, that is very likely, but fantasy-wise, I'm giving you guys a little bit of uptick here. I do like me some Darnell Mooney for a receiver late in drafts.
Also, Cole Kmet, the tight end. I think he could have.
Cole Kmet, yeah.
Could be another guy.
Kmet definitely is another guy. Can definitely get behind. There's some value here. Definitely some value here. Another guy you may want to look at if you end up going with David Montgomery. Tariq Cohen, I think, is out for a while. Damian Williams is another guy you may want to handcuff Montgomery with as well. Definitely catch out of the backfield. So there's a few options here when it comes to fantasy value for the Chicago Bears. Moving along, we've got the new and improved. Gio knows this guy very, very well. That is Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. They did pick up one Jared Goff. Gio did help Jared Goff pack his bags and ship him off to Detroit. I was there. I saw it live, so you can't convince me that it didn't happen. Detroit added some pretty nice pieces, man. Not only did they add Jared Goff, but Tyrell Williams, they ended up drafting Penei Sewell to not solidify, but to help out on the offensive line. I do like the Michael Brockers signing. They added some depth with Jamal Williams as well. But this team, we have to probably say, is going to be the bottom feeders when it comes to the NFC North. Don't expect much out of the Detroit Lions. Trey, can you give Detroit fans any hope that this season will be relevant for them?
Yeah, they're going to win the division. I'm totally joking there. No, I'm sorry. I don't even know why we're talking about the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff is a show. He's not that good of a quarterback. I'm sorry. I never liked him in L.A. Sean McVay basically carried him to be the Super Bowl quarterback that he was. And then finally we got tape on him, and you just saw he was widely inaccurate. DeAndre Swift, maybe your only good fantasy player in this draft. If you're going to draft, maybe late round if you need a backup running back. But I just think that I don't even know why we're talking about the Detroit Lions. They're going to have 2 wins. They're probably going to be the third worst team in the NFL this year. I just don't see any value in this.
2 wins.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I think they're a little bit better than that.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
I think.
Okay, maybe I'll give them 4 wins. How about that?
I mean, their offensive line, they're currently ranked 11th. I think they'll be able to play.
They don't have a quarterback to throw it to anybody.
Yeah, but Jared can be a serviceable quarterback. They got some decent receivers. TJ Hawkinson's back there. Tyrell Williams, he was hurt last year. Bernard Perriman is a speed guy. I think this team could be sneaky, kind of weirdly a competitive team. I mean, 2 wins, I think, is going to be pretty low. I think this roster – now, the defense is obviously worrisome. They were the worst defense probably last season along with some other teams. So they're going to be in some shootouts. I think Jared can get you at least 4 or 5 wins. I think 2 wins could be – I think they could 6-7 wins is probably their high point.
I would definitely take that bet. I would gladly take that under bet.
Wow.
Have you seen their schedule? I mean, have you literally seen their schedule?
But, looking at the schedule before the season, I mean, I looked at the schedule and I said, oh, we're going to beat the Jets. And guess what? We lost against the Jets. So the NFL is a very different league compared to maybe the NBA. But I say 6-7 high point, probably a little bit less than that. But I think the team can play better. I mean, they can't be worse than what they were last season.
Oh yeah, they can. They can be 5 games worse.
I mean, we are talking about a team that did have the perfect imperfect season at 0-16.
I mean, listen, they made a lot of adjustments. They have a lot of new pieces, and maybe it just might work.
I'm looking at the schedule, and I can see potentially 3 wins
Thank you.
total. That's 2 against Chicago and 1 against Cincinnati. But even at the Chicago one, I'm not sold that they can beat the Bears. I mean, then again, Cincinnati is better this year. So, I mean, 0 wins for Detroit, that's got to be a possibility.
So they can't beat the Eagles?
I don't know. I mean,
They can't beat the Denver Broncos?
don't get Will mad.
They
But-
can't beat your Falcons?
Nobody can be my Falcons. Nobody. I don't believe it until it happens.
I'll give them
Man,
I mean, okay, so you're naming teams that they could potentially beat, but you're talking about going into Atlanta and winning there, which is tough on the road.
Okay.
Tough on the road. The only thing that's bad about Atlanta on a Sunday is that Chick-fil-A, the only Chick-fil-A in the whole building is closed. That's the only bad thing about Atlanta.
Listen, I'm not saying they're going to finish last. I just think they might be a little bit better than two wins. Because for all we know, they won the first 3. You know, they can win the first 3 games.
It's possible. It's
Yeah,
possible.
wins.
Will, let's move on to Will here because I gotta ask him. This is probably gonna be a short answer by Will. Fantasy value when it comes to the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, maybe. DeAndre Swift, maybe. I think the best option is TJ Hawkinson, honestly, when it comes to fantasy value. What do you got, Will?
I mean, you got your flyer and Swift and Hawkinson. He's a high-rated tight end, but I don't know if he's that high-rated anymore there. I mean, I'm with Trey. We can go on to the next.
Thank you.
Watch out for Tyrell Williams. I think he's very underrated. He was hurt last season, but the year before that, he played very well. They're going to have some guys. Listen, they're going to be all right.
He's a
They're not
sleeper.
going to lose.
But
I don't know. I mean, my fantasy value on this whole team,
I like
said, is
Tyrell
TJ
Williams. I just don't know.
All I know is I want to know what Gio's drinking, and I want some.
Watch. When they win more than 2 games, I'm going to add all of you on
Yeah, but
Twitter.
they're not going to win 7.
I
Wait a
said
minute.
I said
You're
6
saying
to
2
7
games.
games. I said 6 to 7 games.
Whoa.
Why are you going to
6 to
add
7
us for 2
wins.
games?
6
No.
to 7 wins. I
Okay,
can see
so
them.
if they get to 6 or 7 wins, you can add us on Twitter. Except Will. Will doesn't have Twitter. But
No, someone said they're going to win. Trey said 2 wins only.
Okay. Yeah, I do. I don't think maybe 3. I'll give him 3.
Ah, I give him an extra one.
So
He
we're gonna
said I
have
gave
to
him an
go
extra
back on
one.
this. Oh man, we're gonna move.
We'll
on
just go
because
back to
the Detroit
5.
Lions should not have
12.
taken up this much time, man, at all. We're going to the Green Bay Packers.
Prima donna.
Aaron Rodgers and
He looks old.
Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. Again, this team should be one of the better teams, not only in the division, but I think in the league as well. I mean, this could be a team that can definitely compete in the NFC. It's just a matter, to me, it falls on Rodgers. And the reason why I say it falls on Rodgers, like it does pretty much every year, is the attitude. If he feels like he wants to be there and play his heart out this year, Green Bay can make a lot of noise this season. Falls on Rodgers. I mean, you've got probably one, if not the best receiver in Devontae Adams. You got a very serviceable running back in Aaron Jones. The defense isn't bad either. I mean, you added what, Eric Stokes to the defensive side. I mean, this team definitely has pieces. And Aaron got one of his best friends, his BFFs, back in one Randall Cobb, who doesn't really scratch the surface.
Who cares about that guy?
Exactly, doesn't really care. But for the Green Bay Packers, we'll start off with Will Haverland.
Security blanket.
Well, what can we expect out of the Green Bay Packers this season?
I don't. They're calling it the last dance. So, Devontae's not looking to do his extension because he's where Aaron's going next year. He's talking about going to play with the Raiders possibly with with his boy Carr. I mean, I think they're going to win the division. I think they can make a playoff run, but it's all going to be a whole thing with them. They're doing nothing but fighting with the office. I mean, potential's there. I just don't know when it's going to happen or when it's going to implode.
Yeah, that is true. Let's go to Trey. Trey, for as far as the Green Bay Packers, can Aaron put away the differences he has with the front office this year and actually make it for Green Bay to where they are competitive and stay competitive throughout the year?
And they're going to stay competitive throughout the year because Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best regular season quarterbacks. He's not I don't trust him in the playoffs, but that's another time for a different story. But I think they can put their differences aside, but I think that Aaron Rodgers, this is his last thing. I think they can put their differences aside. I think this is all an act. If you saw the preseason game on Saturday afternoon, he looked like he was having a good old time. It's all an act. He's long gone. He's gone after this season. So I just believe that it's basically Groundhog Day with the Green Bay Packers. They're going to win the division. They're going to win by 4 games probably because that division's not that very good this year. And I just think that the offense is going to click, but they needed to get Aaron Rodgers some help. Devontae Adams, he can do it, but he's number 1 wide receiver in the league right now. But he double team him, and who do you have? I mean, that defense is going to have to step up. That defense actually cost him a couple games last year as well. King cost him a playoff Super Bowl championship as well at the end of the first half against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that defense did improve a lot this year. Jar Alexander, he's going to have to step up. He says he's going to shut down corner. Let's see if it's happening this year. But it's a Groundhog Day all over again. They're going to division, probably go to divisional round, probably make it to the NFC Championship, and probably flame out there and lose to Tampa Bay once again because they don't have the willpower to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's same old, and then Aaron Rodgers is going to find a new team next year. But the key is he can't go anywhere he wants to. He can ask for a trade, but he can't demand where he wants to go next year. If he waits another year, then he can become an unrestricted free agent. So maybe he stays another year, but I think he's gone after this year.
Yeah, we know the fantasy value for Green Bay already. I want to get Gio's take on the Packers because this is a hot story. I mean, they did lose Devin Funchess for the year. So, I mean, I was going to consider Devin Funchess a very, very late sleeper when it came to the Packers. I think he would have been a fantastic fit for the Packers, but with him going down this year, that kind of sucks on the fantasy side. But I want to get Gio. I want your opinion on the Packers, man, because this is a team that I think can really make some noise in the NFC if Rodgers just buys into this season, which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that he does.
Well, it sounds like you're a Packer fan now.
Exactly.
From
No, I'm not.
But anyway, I mean, the Packers are going to be a good football team. I mean, they have the pieces. They have everything in place. Is Aaron there mentally? I think so. I mean, they've been to 2 straight NFC Championship games. Can they get to a third one? That's pretty tough. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, I could definitely see them getting back to that championship game, but for some reason, Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, just after that Super Bowl run, just really hasn't been. And in that Super Bowl run, they beat Caleb Haney and the Bears because Jay Cutler couldn't come back in the game. So, sure, they're a good football team. They're going to be there. They're going to be one of the top teams in the league. But is Aaron Rodgers there all the way? I'm not completely buying it. But they have the defense. I mean, and the defense is going to be one of those things where they're going to be up and down, but they're going to be solid because of Aaron Rodgers and how much points they put up. But they got kind of exposed against Tampa Bay when, I mean, Tom Brady did throw 3 picks, but they just couldn't get enough turnovers to kind of get in the red zone to help out the Packers because Aaron Rodgers just couldn't get the ball in the red zone at the end. So it's just different things with this team, but they're going to be there at the end. But I don't see them getting to the Super Bowl. I like my team better, but
well, definitely one team that's not getting to the Super Bowl is the Minnesota Vikings. They've got a really good team, but I don't see the Vikings making it to the Super Bowl. Obviously, Dalvin Cook was a fantasy stud last season. I expect him to be the same way. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, that's still the head scratcher for me, man. I mean, Kirk, can he get it done? Yeah, but can he actually take it to the next level? I don't know, man. That's the problem I've got with Kirk Cousins. I don't know if he can actually lead the team. They've got the receiving core in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. The defense is pretty good. The defense is stout. They went out and added Patrick Peterson and Xavier Woods. I mean, they added pieces to compete, but I don't know if it's enough for them to actually make it, to being contenders. So we'll have to wait and see. Gio had actually dropped out of the stream here, but let's go to Trey first. Trey, as far as Minnesota goes, what expectations do we have for the Vikings?
I actually have them going second division this year. I think they get 10 wins. Kirk Cousins, if he just doesn't turn the ball over and he feeds Justin Jefferson, who's going to be a beast in this league, as he showed last year in his rookie year, probably should have been rookie of the year if it wasn't for Justin Herbert's amazing rookie year. But you have Dalvin Cook can take it off your shoulders a little bit. You can put him anywhere in the backfield. You can put him in the slot. You can do anything you want to with Dalvin Cook. He's a fantasy god, basically, if you want to get Dalvin Cook. Justin Jefferson, like I said, is going to be your number one wide receiver. And then Adam Thielen, he's also a very good wide receiver himself in the red zone. So if he throws the ball to the red zone, that's going to be good for the key for the Minnesota Vikings is going to be that defense. Last year, they were very young on the defensive side of the ball. Do they take that step up? Because Zimmerman's actually a defensive coach, so that's his pride and joy. So I think if they step up the defense, they can easily contend maybe with the Green Bay Packers just for a little bit, but I think it's Green Bay's division to lose. But I think Minnesota gets in as a wild card, maybe the 7th seed, and actually gets in. And I think that the offense is going to have to carry this team for a little bit until the defense catches up this year.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, they're probably the second best team in that division. Will, give us a quick analysis for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, can Kirk Cousins really take that next step and take this team further than what people are expecting?
I don't think so. He never has. I mean, he's on some decent teams. Played for Washington. You see spurts, but he's not consistent. You need consistent play, and I don't think he's that. I think he's a lot of talk. He loves to talk. It reminds me of Phillip Rivers when he loves the trash talk, but he just does. He only talks good. When he's bad, he's complaining, not playing. He's hurt. I mean, they gave him this big contract, and he hasn't lived up to the expectations of a fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, guys, before we leave, again, this will sweep the league. We're going through the AFC and the NFC North divisions, brought to you by Project Spurs and DraftKings. Fantasy football right around the season. We are with you every single Sunday from 10 to 11 here for the Fantasy Countdown. We give you all of your daily fantasy needs as well as helping you draft the right fantasy team for that day. Just join us every Sunday from 10 to 11 on the Fantasy Countdown for your DraftKings lineups. Real quick, guys, as far as fantasy value, obviously, Dalvin Cook has the best fantasy value here. But Justin Jefferson, can we see an uptick in his production this season? Adam Thielen is, he's good every single year. So far, he's been great. But Justin Jefferson looks to be that wide receiver 1 for the Minnesota Vikings. Can we expect him to have more fantasy value this season? We'll start with Will on that. Will, as far as the fantasy value for Justin Jefferson, what are we expecting this year from him?
I think a breakout season. I mean, no one really knew what he could do last year, and he showed up and he was on the main stage and he stayed there. I think the sky's the limit. I think he's going to be the man. I think he's going to try to be that version of Devontae Adams. I think they're going to feed him, and you're just going to see multiple breakout games from this kid.
Yeah, Trey, same thing, man. We've seen Justin Jefferson as being that main guy for the receiving core here in Minnesota.
I think he's your number one threat. I think I hate to mention, I think he's going to be a Julio Jones kind of guy. I think he's going to get all the yards in the world, but when it comes to touchdowns, I think Adam Thielen's going to take, because Adam Thielen's a beast in the red zone. You just throw it up and somehow this guy always catches it. I think he's going to get your majority of your points in their end zone. But like William was right. I mean, basically, he's going to be a beast this year. I mean, the guy's fast. He can catch. He can go over the top. He can go to the slant. He can go slot. He can do anything that you want. This guy is going to be a maybe top 3 wide receiver in the next 4 or 5 years. So I'm all in on Jefferson being the guy, because Adam Thielen is getting older, but I still think Adam Thielen is still your red zone threat because he's proven in the past that he can get the job done anywhere in the red zone.
Cool. Cool. So we've obviously got the job done tonight here, talking about the AFC North, the NFC North. Now next Wednesday, it's going to be fun because we have the East squads, AFC East, and everybody's favorite, the NFC Least.
Hey, not this year. Not this year.
Talked about go Cowboys. I mean, it's the Cowboys' turn next week. I'm going to try to put them last, even though they're
It's
probably
still the
going to be first.
preseason.
Yeah, still the preseason, man. We'll be talking about the final divisions next week for the AFC East, the NFC East, and then it's football time. This weekend, we're actually trying to get everything squared away. We'll probably do a mock draft or something this weekend to see where we draft when it comes to the fantasy countdown. Kind of give you guys an idea of who's going where. We may have a couple of you guys on to join us in the mock draft so you can pick a team and try to screw us up on where we're picking. But we'll see if we can square all that. If not, we still have the fantasy countdown. We're going to still talk fantasy football this Sunday, whether we have the mock draft or not this Sunday. But again, football season is almost upon us. Draft time is almost upon us. Like we said before, go get your account on DraftKings. You can put the absolute best lineup out there, win major buku bucks on DraftKings. Some of the entry fees are only like a quarter. I played a lot of quarter games as well. They have them all the way to a couple $100, I think, for a couple $1,000 actually for entries. Go to DraftKings, get that account squared away, get you signed up, get ready for some fantasy football. So for Will Haverland, for Trey Collis, this has been Sweep the League, brought to you by Project Spurs and DraftKings. Coach Gio said sayonara. He had a work meeting to go to. Rudy Campos Jr., thank you, everybody, for sweeping the league with us again. Until next week.